from thinking about funding, how to find funding to carry on the projects. But then essentially what we're saying really is that there are some other questions that we need to ask. Essentially, sustainability is about continuity. We do a nice, wonderful project and we want to keep it going. We want to expand it into some kind of long-term thing. Once we get to the long term, that's where we're talking about sustaining the impact as well. Because very much we're aware that, especially when it comes to behavior change, maintaining the behavior or that initiative would usually, that's where the challenge is. So, my first slide, we don't have many slides really, just a few. It says, show me the money. The statement I have there, funding is a catalyst for thinking about sustainability, that's where we are. That's where we've been for a while. I think it's good that we're having this discussion now so that we're not thinking about sustainability only in relation to funding anymore. But at the same time, we still have to recognize that the cost factor is something that we have to take into consideration all the time. The initiative cost, so too will the continuity. So we still have to think about the funding. We all expect people to make budgets, but usually we don't know how we're going to fund that budget. And we all say, nice, wonderful project idea, it has a nice budget and so on, and then nobody thinks about how to fund the budget. Capacity building is about reducing the dependence on externally driven initiatives and resources. And yesterday we talked about what capacity building could mean. Developing knowledge and application skills, that also costs. So that if, last night when myself and Roswell were talking about it, if the general thing really is for us to to design an original project, recognizing that we're going to have to build capacity. So we design an original project that has within it certain skills development component. So it's not just about designing the program, but also making sure that our producers, for example, are exposed to certain kinds of skills. Really what that should mean is that your second round of design workshop should therefore not include those kinds of skills development, which would automatically lead to a reduction in cost. Should. But we're so in need of capacity development in terms of these skills that the second round we still have a component in there for skills development. So again, you have to, it's like what we're doing, it's constantly tying certain kinds of capacity building to design in this context. For example, with CAL, we know we have to design a program, but we also want to capitalize on the fact that it gives us that opportunity. And therefore, we probably need to begin to look outside of that design process in terms of other ways. Yesterday we mentioned a few in terms of the universities and the colleges and so on, having people that would have been exposed to the initial training come back and help to give back. But in any case, the point is that you don't want to be continuing projects at a level at which it's going to be constantly putting a stress on either your technological system, the infrastructure, or the human resources. So that's one element that we have to talk about, the money. And second one, show me the way forward. I put these questions here as indicators to say how we can move forward. Do we have a well-trained and educated staff to make sure that the program is carried on? Usually that's the question that we face. So we want people to write proposals on their own, but can they? Right? What do we then need to do to ensure that we have this kind of well-trained staff to carry on the project? What happens if MTC doesn't have the facility to continue with the Radio Atlantis, people in Atlantis, to carry on their project, if they feel as though this is something that they want to. Are they always going to be depending on MTC? What do we have within the program now that would allow for that ease of transition, so to speak? Do we have the technical or infrastructural resources to keep the program going? And the follow-up question to that is what needs to be done to ensure that these are in place. Show me the sources. This is a big one, and I'm going to say something that probably will get us all in trouble. Where does our program team turn for support in developing the strategies for sustainability? There are 4 areas here that we're identifying as already built in within the initiative, in other words, the first project. Wider external international network, we had good examples yesterday. Franklin raised questions, well, suggested that CAL should, let me put it another way. Franklin as AMARC raised question of Ian as CAL, or suggested that Ian as CAL should begin to engage Jacob as UNESCO in having a different understanding about where certain kinds of funding could go. All right? Now, what it means, therefore, is that all of us at this table would automatically be part of that network between AMARC, CAL, and UNESCO. The question is, are we using them as individual agencies only, or are we building a network in terms of where we can go with the work that we have to do? I think in many instances we're using them as, we see them as individual agencies and not working as part of a network. So we need to widen the external and international network. Within our initiatives, all our initiatives are based on certain principles, certain beliefs, certain standards that we want to promote, the values, and have specific outcomes. Especially in relation to outcomes, what we're seeing here is for us to get the kind of support that we need, we're going to have to translate some of our outcomes into policy, into legislation, that kind. I think that's where we have to go. In other words, within the project itself, there are opportunities for us to find other ways of carrying on the project. So an initiative can be carried on in relation to a particular outcome. Because if you convert your outcome into, for example, policy and legislation, it means therefore that you have a different kind of partner that you can work with, which would probably be more at a higher level than we had anticipated in the original design of the project. Partners within the local network built through, we mentioned that yesterday, I mean, in as much as the ministries of health are part of the state apparatus and therefore in relation to policy, they are already at the table with it. And so we begin to see how we can get them to obviously they would have bought into your initial design, so we can get them now to work through this project in other ways that they have to do work. And of course, internal skills and resources. We mentioned it already, all of the projects have given people an opportunity to develop new skills. And what if, I don't know how many of us had come across the CLP model before Carl's introduction, except for those who actually designed it. All right? Those are new skills that we have. Those are new skills that can be brought to bear upon other work outside of Carl's work, and therefore would be a potential for